Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tare, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. And today I'm up to song number 2573, and that one is Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton. This came out in 1978. Actually, I think the single was released in 77 the previous year, but it peaked on the charts in 78, went to number 16, and it was also featured on his very popular 1977 album called Slowhand. I think this one had a couple other hits on it. I know it had Lay Down Sally, which was a big hit for him. And anyway, um, so I guess first I should talk about the song "Wonderful Tonight." Not a whole lot to say about it. It's a love song. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a self-centered love song, if you want my opinion. It's mostly just talking about his girlfriend's appearance. He says, she's very particular about making herself up. Combing her long blonde hair and putting on her makeup, and she's asking him, "Do I look all right?" And he says, "You look wonderful tonight." And then he goes out with her, and kind of, everybody's oohing and ahhing over her, because she's like the beauty queen of the night, and he's happy showing her off to all of his friends, I guess. And then finally goes home with her, and they have some pretty hot sex, I guess. And he tells her she looks wonderful tonight while he's making love to her. That's about all the song's about. I'd say it's pretty superficial in my view. I mean, it's not all about physical appearance, and maybe he didn't quite learn that lesson when he wrote this song. I don't know. But I think that you have to love a woman for a lot more than just her appearance. So that's kind of my critique of Wonderful Tonight. Not his best song, but he was an amazing musician. Now I want to talk about Eric Clapton. And I think he's one of the greatest rock musicians of all time. I mean, just in terms of the amount of music he performed and wrote, and he was considered one of the greatest guitarists that ever lived. And here's a picture of him. I guess around the time he recorded "Wonderful Tonight." I'm sure you guys are all familiar with him, and he's had a very long history. He was born in Surrey, England in 1945. And he got his start in music very early, 1962. I guess he was only 17 at the time. And he performed before he went solo. He performed with several groups. He started out with the Yardbirds. Here's a picture of the Yardbirds along with him. They were a pretty big group. I have a few songs by them on my list. I already featured one. I think I featured Over Under Sideways Down a few months ago. I don't think he was with them at that time, but he was with them later, and I think in this picture. Then later after that, he was with them from 63 to 65, and then in 65, he was with John Mayall and the Blues Breakers. I'm not familiar with their music, but here's the picture. He was with them for, I guess, about a year, 65 to 66. And then he joined a group called Cream. I think he formed this group called Cream, just a trio. And the Cream was a pretty big hit, a group. I'll get into them later. And after Cream, he joined Blind Faith. Here's a picture of Blind Faith. I think they were a pretty big group too. I don't know what hits they had, but they were around for just a year, 1969. And then finally, he was with a group called Derek and the Dominoes. They had several big hits. Their biggest, I'm sure you guys all know, Layla. Layla is considered one of the greatest rock songs of all time, I think. Is coming up much higher on my list. I'm not going to say how high. And several other hits by Eric Clapton, both solo and with some of the groups I just mentioned, are coming up on this list. So stay tuned for them. A lot more Eric Clapton coming up. And anyway, so now I guess I'll just go over his hits, and I guess I'll just go back to his solo picture. So first, I guess I'll go through his hits with the groups I talked about. Maybe I should go to the Yardbirds because he did have several hits with them. So his first hit with the Yardbirds, I guess he only had one hit with them when he was with them, and that was in 1965. That was the song "For Your Love," which went to number 6. I believe that was the biggest hit for the Yardbirds. They had a few other hits, including the one I mentioned, Over, Under, Sideways, Down, but I don't think Eric Clapton was with them for that one. And then with Cream, let me go to Cream again. With Cream in 1968, he had Sunshine of Your Love. That was their biggest hit. That one went to number 5. That one's also coming up much, much higher on my list. He also had a song called Anyone for Tennis, subtitled The Savage Seven Theme. I guess they used it in a movie called The Savage Seven, which I never saw. That one only went to number 64. It was a minor hit. But then they had a big hit called White Room, another top 10. That one went to number 6. And then I guess in 1969 they had a couple more hits. They had Crossroads, kind of a blues song that went to number 28. And then finally Badge. That's a song of theirs I do like. That one only went to number 60 though. And then they had, I was kind of surprised to learn that. Eric Clapton actually had a hit along with John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band. I don't show their picture here, but they had a hit called Cold Turkey, which went to number 30 in 1969. Kind of a strange song. I've heard it before. And then finally with Derek and the Dominoes, let me go to their picture. There they are. With Derek and the Dominoes, he had a 1971 Bell Bottom Blues, which went to number 91. And then he had a hit with Layla. They had a hit with Layla in 71. At that time, it only went to 51. But it was actually released twice. This is another thing I just learned. And then in 72, I guess Layla and Bell Bottom Blues were such popular songs that they both got re-released in 72 as a two-sided hit. 45, Layla on one side, Bell Bottom Blues on the B side, I guess. That went to number 10. So I guess they had their only top 10 with that double-sided hit. Of course, Layla's the more well-known one. And then in 73, I guess they had another hit again. Bell Bottom Blues was re-released for the third time, along with Little Wing, and that two-sided hit went to number 78. So that was Derek the Dominoes, and then solo as a solo artist. Now I got to go back to Eric Clapton as a solo artist. I'll go through all of his hits. He had a lot of hits. So in 1970, his first solo hit was After Midnight. That went to number 18. That was in 1970. 72, he had a solo hit called Let It Rain, which went to 48. Just missed the top 40. And then in 74, he had his only number one solo, or with a group, and that was I Shot the Sheriff. And that one was actually written by Bob Marley, I think shortly before Eric Clapton had a hit with it. But Eric Clapton's version went all the way to number 1. I think he had a couple kind of reggae songs, but that was his only reggae hit. And then he had a version of Willie and the Hand Jive. I just learned this today. Willie and the Hand Jive was originally recorded by Johnny Otis back in the 50s. I think he had a hit with it. Might even have gone top 10. But Eric Clapton's version went to number 26. And then in 1976, he had Hello Old Friend, which went to 24. In 1978, he had another top 10, Lay Down Sally, which went to number 3. And then he had the song I'm featuring today, Wonderful Tonight, which went to 16. And then he had Promises, which went to number 9. And then in 1980, he had Tulsa Time, which went to 30, and Blues Power, which went to 76. And then in 1981, he had I Can't Stand It, which went to number 10, and another Ticket, which went to 78. And then 83 had a song I really like called I've Got a Rock and Roll Heart. That one is coming up on my list, as many other ones are. That one went to number 18. In 1985, he had Forever Man, which went to 26, and See What Love Can Do, which went to 89. In 1989, he had Pretending, which went to 55. 1990, he had Bad Love, which went to 88. In 1992, he had, I guess, the second biggest hit of all time. He had Tears in Heaven, which went to number 2. And that, by the way, it's a very sad song. It was inspired by the death of his 3-year-old son. I guess his son drowned in his swimming pool, and it was about, it was a kind of a tribute to his son that he just lost. And then he had a acoustic version of Layla, later that year, another big hit. That went to number 12. And then in 1996, he had Change the World, which went to 5. And finally, in 1998, he had My Father's Eyes, which went to 16. So a lot of hits for Eric Clapton. Very, very prolific and very, very great musician. And that completes my feature of Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton. Um, so thank you for watching. You guys rock, and I'll see you next time.